They volunteer, and they have a special association around suicide awareness, prevention, and loss. So we're going to have some guest speakers, and just so you're aware, the event's probably going to wrap up about 6 o'clock. And right now I'd like to invite Sarah. She just told me how to say her last name. Karen's up, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everyone. We're starting off with a land acknowledgement. This is the City of Orillia land acknowledgement. So I would like to take this moment to respectfully acknowledge that the City of Orillia is situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nations, a member of the Chippewa Tri-Council and Three Fires Confederacy, and that it continues to be home to many diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. As a city, we honor and value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of Indigenous peoples in the area, home to one of North America's oldest human development, the Benegning fish weirs. We acknowledge that this land is covered by the Williams Treaty and Upper Canada Treaties signed by our government on behalf of the Anishinaabe and Canadian peoples. It was once part of the Coldwater Narrows Reserve. The City of Orillia is committed to building a welcoming, caring, and inclusive and accessible community for all citizens, which includes helping the community understand, acknowledge, and take action towards real truth and reconciliation so that we can move forward together with respect and harmony and dignity for all Indigenous peoples of the past, the present, and the future. And thank you, merci, and miigwech.
Thank you very much for that land acknowledgement, Sarah. And next we're going to have welcome by Lee Matthews.
As Susan said, my name's Lee Matthews, and hi to everybody. Welcome for being here. This is our 13th Walk of Hope, 13th annual Walk of Hope for Suicide Awareness. Bernadette, who is one of our founding members, usually does the welcome, and she can't be with us due to personal reasons, but I know she's missing it, and I know she's thinking about us, and we're thinking about her as well. This will be the first walk that she hasn't been able to participate in. We're all here today to walk for loved ones lost to suicide and to support each other. Our hope is that everyone joining us today takes the message home that you are not alone. There are resources and people out there to help you get through these tough days. We have a support program, Survivors of Suicide Loss, that runs usually 2 times a year, the spring and the fall. And since COVID, it's been virtual. So if you're interested and want to check it out or enroll in it, you can go to our website, or there's information here, if it hasn't blown away yet, on the tables that you can take with you. Also, the walkthroughs, I don't know if everybody's figured it out yet, but they're in the yellow building. It's a bit of a walk, but they're not too bad. So thank you everybody for being here today. We appreciate everybody's presence and walking lost. Thank you. Susan.
Thank you, Lee, for that wonderful welcome to everyone this year. I'm seeing a lot of friendly faces, and my memory's pretty much gone, so if I can't remember your name, I do apologize, but it's lovely to see all of you here. These walks are so important. They bring individuals together, sometimes for the first time, to start real conversations around suicide and helping those coping with grief. We think it's important here, as part of the council, to walk together in memory, but also to give hope to others and maybe even save a life. Grief is its own kind of intimacy, a bond of sorts between you and the one you lost. No one else feels it the way you do about that person you loved most. We have some incredible speakers here today, and at this time I'd like to invite Rob Lethan up.
I was going to start with what an amazing day to be here, but because it's so amazing, the weather, not so much. Just give me a second here while I get my speaking notes up. Okay.
You have to hold it up fairly close now.
So, standing in front of a group of people talking about a very difficult topic, it's pretty stressful. So, I have this unique kind of way of getting over that initial stress. So, I need somebody from the audience. And I think Daniel there will. So, Daniel. It's Daniel, right?
Yeah,
Daniel. So, yeah, but I know why you're here. So, what do you do?
So I study astrophysics and I go software engineering. So
That's pretty cool. Why did you get into astrophysics?
they let me. No, they're a mistake, but it's going okay. So it's fun. It's cool. It's interesting. We get to kind of learn new things. So there's a lot of
Cool. So, is that a year-round program or like,
Yeah.
what do you do in the summer?
Summer just work and maybe a little travel this time. So
No vacation or anything, or
lots of plans this time. A little vacation.
yeah, where you gonna go on vacation?
China. So I'm gonna get some
Nice.
work. Yeah. Practice my Mandarin a bit.
Yeah, like China.
To practice my Mandarin, my Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Follow sports?
A little
You
bit.
a Leafs fan?
Been to a bunch of blue games.
Hey, show them the Leafs.
I always bet on them the wrong game.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Daniel. I really appreciate you helping me get rid of the nerves. So, my name's Rob Lethan. I've been a retired firefighter for 2 years now. Had a 30-year career in the fire service. In that 30 years, I've responded literally to thousands of calls. You name it. Structure fires, car fires, vehicle fires, grass fires, remote fire alarms, industrial accidents, chemical spills, medical calls, difficulty breathing, uncontrolled chest pains, unconsciousness, and yes, even suicide calls. Back then, suicide really was a foreign topic to me. It never really affected me at all. It was always somebody else's issue. Then, respond to a suicide call, and there's nothing we could do, and we leave. Never really got to see the impact. So it was never really much of a forethought for me. One of the guys that used to be on my crew, was still on my platoon back in 2018. His name's Mike. Back in 2018, he took his life. And for me, that event, that brought suicide much closer to home. It was no longer just, an issue that was somebody else's. It now, came much closer to home. Mike was an amazing person. And Mike's loss of Mike was devastating to his crew. It was devastating to my crew, my platoon, and it was devastating to our department. Right? His death, the impact of it was far-reaching. Right? So, over my 30-year career, and unbeknownst to me, my career was changing me. I wasn't aware of the change. There's an analogy that I like to use. It's the frog in the pot analogy. So if you take a frog and you throw that frog into a pot of boiling water, it's jumping out. But if you take that same frog and you put it in a pot of cold water on the stove and you turn it on slowly, eventually that frog boils to death. And why does that happen? That's because the change is so slow, the change in temperature is so slow that it becomes the new norm. And that frog eventually water. It wasn't me.
I was afraid of that.
So, as a career as a firefighter, it was no different with me. That slowly changing, things were getting worse. worse and worse, but the change was so slow for me that it was my new normal. Until my life started falling apart. I had, anger, lots of anger, borderline rage, emotional numbness, intrusive memories. I was a control freak, hyper vigilant. Was not a nice person to live with. My wife, who's here with me today still, she was getting ready to leave me. I needed help, and I reached out for it, and I started weekly therapy. So at that time of my life, again, absolutely falling apart. What I thought were marriage issues, like all first responders have, was actually me. I was the problem. Again, had no idea, wasn't diagnosed yet, had an idea that it was probably PTSD, whatever that was. All right. I felt hopeless, helpless, overwhelming emotional pain. I had absolutely zero control over anything, chaotic, irrational thoughts, and I needed them to stop. And it was at that point that the only way that I could figure out how to make all that chaotic mess going on in my head, the only way I could make it stop was suicide. Suicide was no longer close to home. It was actually in my home. So I decided suicide was the only way to end the overwhelming emotional pain. I thought about all the different ways I could do it. I've responded to a lot of suicide calls over my career. I know lots of different ways of doing it. I wasn't going to take my life the way Mike did. I wasn't going to take my life the way I had seen in some of the calls I responded to. I ended up going through a medicine cabinet, grabbing all the pills that we had that could potentially do what I wanted to accomplish. Fortunately, some people think of it as fortunately. At the time, I was really pissed off. But I had the pills there, and being somewhat aware of suicide and the medical side of it, it's like, yeah, I didn't have enough that would actually accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. In hindsight, that was a blessing for me. I was absolutely pissed. And I thought, okay, well, it's getting late in the day, I'm going to bed. All right, I thought I'll come up with plan B, and I already knew what plan B was. And that required me to go out the next day to buy what I needed. I was going to do chemical asphyxiation. I responded to a few calls, and in the profession, it's called Chinese suicide. It's the way that mixing certain chemicals, and I won't mention what those chemicals are, mixing certain chemicals, and it's fatal. So, thought a lot. That night, thought a lot. Where I could get the chemicals I needed, where, stores, how I was going to do it, where I was going to do it. And at the same time, I thought a lot about Mike's funeral. Mike, firefighter, typical firefighter funeral. It was held up in Collingwood, the base of the ski hills. Aerial ladder trucks there, flag hanging down. Amazing turnout. The entire department was there. We had another department covering us back in Newmarket, Aurora, so the entire department could go to Mike's funeral. I thought, sat there, and it was a very emotional day, obviously. Everybody that was there knew what had happened with Mike. Everybody knew why we were there. Nobody was talking about it. There was just something you could almost feel in the air at that funeral, during his funeral. stigma. If you could actually feel stigma, it was almost like a thick fog. It was hanging over everything. You could almost cut through. And I realized, that funeral, I remember seeing Mike's wife, 7-year-old son standing up in the front. I thought, wow, this stigma here, it's palpable. You can feel it. Nobody's talking about it. And I thought, you know what? Mike's wife and his 7-year-old son, they're going to have to live with that stigma for the rest of their lives. And when that realization came to me, that's when the light bulb went off for me. And it was like, yeah, you know what? I want to end my life. Absolutely. That's the only way I can see of getting rid of that pain. But my wife, and at the time my teenage kids, son and daughter, they'd have to live with that exact same stigma for the rest of their lives. And while I would be gone, they had to live with that stigma. And it was at that moment, that morning, the next morning, when I realized that, no, I chose to live. And to this day, that was June 2nd, 2019. To this day, I refer to June 2nd, 2019 as my rebirth day. And the reason why I call it my rebirth day is, as a society, we celebrate graduations. We celebrate job promotions. We celebrate, career advancement. We celebrate home buying. We celebrate everything. Why don't we celebrate the people who choose to live when they were going to kill themselves? So that's why, I call June 2nd, 2019 my rebirth day, because that's what it is to me. So, the way my journey went, 1 week later, June 7th, 2019, I received my official diagnosis, and it was severe PTSD, severe major depressive disorder, a lot of OCD tendencies, just not enough to be clinically diagnosed, and that's when I really started the hard work. That hard work, not easy. I can tell you, I wouldn't wish PTSD and depression and anxiety on anybody. But I do like to say that, it's not a life sentence. It's only a life sentence if you let it. So I started doing all the hard work. Part of that hard work, part of that therapy for me was doing peer support. So I started attending peer support groups like Wings of Change, which I see a fellow Wings of Changer from the past, who is now with York Region EMS. Congrats. I started attending peer support groups like Wings of Change, Badge of Light Canada. I started becoming a peer support facilitator with Badge of Light Canada, Wings of Change, boots on the ground peer support for first responders. I also started doing mental health education and advocacy, mental health artwork, and I became an ASSIST instructor. And hopefully everybody's heard of ASSIST. For those who haven't, ASSIST is a program by Living Works, and it stands for Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. So I am an ASSIST instructor. During all that time, I had a conversation with a Brampton firefighter who was on their peer support team, had a little bit of lived experience, and we were talking about suicide. And he made a comment really, really annoyed me, really pissed me off. I'm being polite with my words. He made a comment that, we can't save them all. That really, really didn't sit well with me. Actually, it motivated me to do a couple of different art pieces about that. And you know what? While we may never achieve that, saving them all, we sure as hell have to keep trying. And the fact, or the idea that we can't necessarily save them all is not the excuse for not trying. Right? So, that's why I do what I do. That's why I talk about my journey with mental health. That's why I talk about suicide. So there's a common theme between the suicide calls I've responded to, Mike's funeral, and the suicide, his suicide, and even talking about my own journeys with it. That common theme is stigma. I sort of have this love-hate relationship with stigma, and I'll get into that in a second. But you guys remember that conversation I had with Daniel at the beginning? Sorry, Dan at the beginning? How did that come across to you guys? Pretty easy, pretty open, friendly. That's the way we need to be talking about suicide. We need to be talking about suicide no differently than we talk about what's for dinner. No differently than when we talk about how our favorite sports team's doing, or where we're going to go on vacation next, or what's going on with the Joneses down the road. We need to be talking about suicide no differently than that. When we can do that, we normalize the conversation around it. Right? I, as part of my mental health advocacy and education, I've networked with a lot of first responders, both here in Canada and in the States. And I know a handful of first responders who were in the same boat I was. They either ended up going through with it and not being successful, which is a good thing, or they've had, suicidal thoughts. And it always struck me as quite strange when they talk about being in the dark place or being in, the dark times. Never really using the word suicide. Apparently there's this new word in the English language that's now being used for, murder and suicide. And it's called unalive. What the heck is that? Unalive. Even in obituaries. You read an obituary. 42-year-old male died unexpectedly. Donations can be made to like CAMH or some mental health thing. Like, as a society, we tiptoe around suicide. Even those with lived experience with it tiptoe around it. I was given some information about how to talk about suicide. And even in that information, from these organizations that deal with suicide all the time, they talk about try to avoid talking about different means and that. Again, why are we tiptoeing around the topic of suicide? Right? If we collectively tiptoe around the topic, how the hell do we expect somebody who's suffering and struggling with their mental health to feel comfortable enough to actually reach out for help? Anybody have an answer for that? So, here's what we do. As a society, we openly and honestly talk about suicide. Use the actual word. Don't tiptoe around it. Right? When you use the word, you take its power away. Yes, we tell those who are struggling to reach out. But more importantly, we need to check in. We need to be able to ask the difficult question. Are you thinking about harming yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Ask the question. Even when I teach assist, and the students are there, and I always call them out when they start talking about dark times and dark. No, stop in front of everybody. Use the word. And I get them to actually use the word suicide. It's not a bad word. It's just a word to describe an action. So we need to be asking the important question. We need to be the true, caring humans that we are, and genuinely and authentically care about people who are struggling with their mental health. And we need to keep talking about preventing suicide, and doing things to help prevent suicide, like we're all doing today, to raise awareness. If you're the one struggling with thoughts of suicide, here's what you need to do. First, you need to realize that thoughts of suicide, thinking about it, thinking about what it would be like if you were no longer here, it's actually more common than you know. Right? With the statistics that we sort of bring out when we're teaching assist, it's shocking just how common thoughts of suicide are. So here's something to think about. If you're the person that's struggling with thoughts of suicide, suicidal ideation, knowing that it's more common than we're willing to admit, how can you feel alone when there's so many of us out there? Right? If you're the person who's struggling with thoughts of suicide, understand that no matter how bad you think you are or the situation is, it always gets better. It always gets better. Maybe not as fast as we would really like, but it does get better. The other thing to remember is reaching out for help. It takes an incredible amount of strength to actually reach out for help. So somebody who's reaching out for help, they're not weak. It's absolutely incredibly strong to be able to do that, to be able to reach out. So I'll leave you with some thoughts, just a couple thoughts. If somebody is in a place where they feel that suicide is the only answer, you can't rationalize them out of those thoughts because they're not actually thinking clearly. I'll give you a perfect example of that chaotic, irrational thoughts. And this is, I don't tell a lot of people this, but now's a good time to be totally open about it. The day I made my decision, I'll tell you what happened that day. I ended up going for a walk, like a small hike. Where I went for the hike, there's a pet cemetery right beside it. I went, checked out the pet cemetery. Those are the thoughts on that day that I made the decision. I thought, holy crap, look at these headstones, these monuments that people paid for their pets. Wow. Those people must have really, really loved their animals so much that they were willing to bury them in a pet cemetery with headstones and everything. And it was Sunday, June 2nd, 2019. It was a beautiful sunny day. I thought, wow, it's very calm and peaceful here. I even laid down on the grass in the middle of this pet cemetery, looking up at the sky, beautiful blue sky. I said, that's what I mean. You can't rationalize because the chaotic thoughts that are going on in people's head. I actually said to myself, wow, there is so much love and peace in death. There's no more suffering. These animals aren't suffering. And I want that calm peace and lack of suffering. Do they sound like rational thoughts to you? No, not one bit. So that's what I try to get across it. When somebody has thoughts of suicide, you can't rationalize them out of those thoughts. Here's what you can do. You can genuinely and authentically show them you care for them, you love them, you hold space for them, and most importantly, you show them that there is hope. When you feel hopeless, which is very common, somebody who's considering suicide, you give them hope. That's the only thing we really can do. So I hope that I've given you all a few things to think about and reflect on when you're thinking about suicide and how it all plays out and what you can do to help prevent it. So I am more than willing to answer any question you might have. I'm here. Just look for the "I'm still here" sweatshirt. So, yeah, thank you. Oh, did you know the question? Yes.
We're going to put signs that what to look for.
Brakes.
Signs that,
You know what? Here's the challenge with suicide. It's such a complex issue that there's not one specific thing you can look for. Right? Yes, there's lots of different signs, lack of hope, people who lose interest, like all the signs that you would expect to see from somebody who's depressed, if they even show signs, right? So I can't specifically say, look for this one thing, or this one thing, or this one thing, because it's such a complex interplay of things that potentially leads to that. The best thing you can do, though, is if you think somebody is struggling, ask them. Come right out and ask them. One of the biggest myths around suicide is that asking somebody if they're suicidal is going to make them do it. That is a crock of, as a matter of fact, if somebody is struggling and considering suicide, and you actually ask them, more than likely, more often than not, that's actually it's a release. It's a relief for them too, that somebody cares enough about them that they're asking, and it's not a taboo topic. Does that make sense? Like, I can give you a list of giving away things, feeling like a burden. No, during conversations, there's no talk about the future. They talk about things like, it'll all be over soon, or it'll be better soon. Like, feeling like a burden. Not everybody feels like a burden. In my case, my reason for suicide wasn't because I felt like a burden. It was because I could only see that as the only way to make the pain end. So, best thing to do, take an assist course, talk to Simcoe County Suicide Prevention Awareness Council, talk to people with lived experience, and ask. So it's not as simple as, here's a list of things to look for, check them off. And if you have 3 out of 7, right? Does that answer your question? Sort of. Anyway, okay, back to
Rob? Thank you, Mark, for coming and speaking.
Thank you.
Want to do some jumping jacks? I feel like having one of those school moments. Maybe just everybody wave their hands around a little bit. That was a lot of information. Rob's very knowledgeable with training. I know there's a lot of us here who've lost someone, who might be grieving. It's really hard sometimes to share without possibly triggering. So I would like to take this time just to, if I can get all the Suicide Awareness Council members to put their hands up. So we're all considered rovers, and if anyone's having like a moment, they need to talk, they just need a quiet, space, someone to go to, just feel free to approach any of us. We're very open that way. So again, we really appreciate you being here today. We know it's cold. We want to get rolling. We launched a new website last year. So the funds that we raise, we're a grassroots group. We're all volunteers. Every dollar that we collect, we value, we respect, and we honor it, and we put it to the best use. We have some printing costs, obviously. One of the great things we did was a new website, and we are, getting all kinds of hits. We're getting lots of data, sharing it. Scott Mills is a spokesperson for the OPPA, and I'd like to invite him up to just say a few words briefly on the association. But I'd also like to thank him for all of his hard work and our new website that took over a year of us planning and working with the developer, and we used a lot of our fundraising for that. So it's a real kick-ass website, I like to say. But Scott, if you could come up, and he's also our tech guru, so when you see us on social media, most of the time that's Scott. So if we could welcome him, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here on this really cold day. The St. John ambulance guys in the back there, thank you for volunteering and being here. Thank you to all the council members that have gone above and beyond to put this event together, as well as their bench dedications that happen. I think there's about 10 of those now. I could be wrong, and they've got them in Perry Sound, Orillia, Barrie. This year's number 10. I am the Strategic Communications Coordinator, one of two with the Ontario Provincial Police Association. And I've been doing that role for 5 years after a 30-year police career. I retired from Toronto Police and Peel Police. And every single event that I started coming to was because invitations went out to the OPP Association from this council. And I've been in attendance, I believe, at 5 different events now where 3 different presidents of the OPP Association have actually come to support. And another one where a director on our board of directors came to support. They weren't available today. They told me to say a few words. They want everybody to know that if you're here grieving today, we're with you. Like Rob was saying, with firefighters, firefighters and police officers, we often have to deal with terrible situations that are lifelong impacting for a lot of family members, a lot of people. And we just want you to know, as police officers and as first responders, that we're with you. And we also have our share of suicides amongst our community. And since 1984, one of our pension and benefits members, staff members at the OPP Association, started keeping statistics because nobody was keeping statistics on the OPP members who had died by suicide. It's not just police officers, it's civilian members as well. Dispatchers, like Lee's a dispatcher, retired communicator, they call it in the OPP world. So the number is a lot higher than you would think. And thankfully, as things change, more services are out there. But it's the work of people like the Suicide Awareness Council here that are pushing that narrative along. And we're just very grateful to be invited to this. I hope we keep getting invited. One of the presidents that I attended with said, Scott, you know how to do technical stuff, websites, social media. Can you please help these people? I'm like, okay. I kind of got voluntold to help. And I just got really hooked on what you guys do. And it's not always easy to pull off these events. It's not always easy when we're trying to juggle a number of different things off of a number of different roles. And so I just want to thank you to everybody who's been involved with this council, everybody who comes out to support it. And I hope that we can go and walk together and warm up and share some advocacy out there, and then maybe go go get some hot chocolate or something even a little more warm than that. And I'll turn it back over to Suzanne here. So thank you all for being here, and look forward to being together.
We just wanted to make sure that they knew how much they were appreciated.
Thank you.
They came up from Burlington, and I'm afraid we're going to lose him to the Hamilton Prevention Council one of these years. So I'm really glad that he's with us and he loves us, and we appreciate everything he does because he has a very, very busy career and family life. So thank you again, Scott, for that. We're going to do some door prizes. Did everybody get a door prize ticket? You got your tickets? Okay. There were some baskets at the front. Those are not the door prizes. So just if you're hoping you had your eye on it, that's not what you're going to get. And I apologize. Those were some other items that are going to be auction items later on. So here we go. All right. We're going to do the last 3. So I've got we'll do 4. 7169. 7169. Can I get 7169? Oh, that's my dad. I am a suicide loss survivor, and I always struggled with the word survivor because I'm like, well, I didn't survive anything, but I've come to terms with it over the years, and I've been with the council now. This is my 4th walk, and it's going to be my 5th bench in the fall. Oh, I lost a ticket. And my parents were able and strong enough to come this year, so I just want to honor them and thank them for coming because we lost Jamie 7 years ago. So thank you so much for being here today. It's extra special for me. So Dad, I'm not sure what I'm going to give you. Let me think about that. Okay, we're going to go with 7192 because that one flew out and that's somebody's lucky one. 7192. Okay, we've got 7188. Oh, yeah, okay, so we got candle and soap for you. Thank you. 7179. The radio station who's graced us today and gave us some shout outs and was promoting, so she has a couple quick words about
bit shorter than everyone else. I want to start this off by thanking everyone for showing up to this amazing event. My name's Caitlin. I am very grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you all today. I hope my story brings hope to others and resonates with you all as well. My mental health struggles began at a very young age, 9 years old. I was constantly riddled with anxiety due to the overwhelming feeling I had of not quite fitting in or understanding the social dynamics in kids my age. As time went on, this led me into a deep depression that lasted many, many years. Why was I so different than other girls my age? Why did I always feel left out socially? The answer to those questions came years later in high school when I was finally diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder amongst many other mental health disorders. I remember when I got diagnosed, my mother asked me how I felt about it. Since a part of me had always kind of known, due to both my brothers also being on the spectrum, I mostly felt relieved. That wasn't until I decided to go to school and tell all my friends, thinking it would provide them with a sense of understanding. I was very wrong and obviously missed the social cue that wasn't very appropriate to do to myself. Kids began to bully me, and I began to isolate myself from everyone around me. I thought people being aware would really help them understand me, but at last I had made myself a giant target. I felt extreme pain and isolation from being misunderstood for so long that I thought maybe I just was not good enough to be here. I felt like I was wasting time and that I didn't need to be what could I ever accomplish with all this misunderstanding I had bottled up within myself? My first attempt was at 16 years old, and many more followed after that. I, for so long, could not shake the feeling that I just was not good enough. Some days I still struggle with that feeling, the overwhelming void of being misunderstood and not quite having a place. However, mental health, like our bodies and brains, is always developing and changing. In December 2019, I also lost a friend of mine due to suicide that I felt very much understood me after a few years of being friends. They unfortunately dealt with their own forms of mental health, and the last thing we spoke about before the inevitable happened was sticking life out together as two highly anxious individuals. I began to spiral in the days after their death and also proceeded to get into a car accident that left me with a traumatic brain injury that only made my mental health worse. I wanted to prove I was good enough to be here, but the voice in my head was always so loud. After yet another few attempts and a long pause in doctor's appointments due to COVID happening, I reached out to my car insurance and told them how much I was struggling. I know a weird place to go, but I wanted help and I didn't want to let people down anymore. They were able to connect me with some amazing doctors and therapists with many resources. So my journey was beginning. Although these doctors around me were trying their best to help and understand me, I still felt a lack of self-worth and isolation in my everyday life. This led me into a very toxic relationship with someone who didn't want or see the value in the resources that these amazing people here provide. I felt the feeling of not being good enough tenfold, even more so than when I was younger. And the things my partner would say to me at the time were destroying all the hard work I had put in with the doctors and therapists I was seeing. As my family felt me pull away, and so did my doctors, everyone knew these were alarm bells for concern, except for me. I thought being treated the way I was okay because deep down inside I still didn't feel good enough in my own mind. As time went on, I had an online friend express their concern for me. She had only seen a few things through video call, and it was enough for her to keep telling me to continue reaching out for help. I thought the only way out was suicide, but she provided other resources as well as her own therapist that she talked to. After a very scary fight with my partner, I phoned my dad and asked to move back home. It took about a month later for me to fully leave and move out, as I was so broken and felt immense guilt that I had put other people through so much pain with just telling them about my experience. I questioned one last time if I should take my life, but instead I reached out to an old therapist and asked her what I should do. The answer she had was to start talking to professionals no matter how hard and no matter how much guilt I felt about putting others through pain, because they are educated and they know what to do with those large emotions. I began reaching out to all these amazing resources we have today, and I'm not going to say every resource works for everyone, but I will say the more you try to find something that works, the more likely you are to run into something that does. The trick to all of this is to always be searching for new ways to cope and more ways to educate yourself. The more you isolate it, the worse it will get. For those looking to support others, any ideas you have, big or small, are always appreciated, even if it doesn't seem as so from the person you're providing them to. And they may not always work, but your persistence of always trying to find something to help them gives us, the people who struggle, gives us immense amounts of hope. We need to feel seen and valued and talked to, as we are all a part of this ever-changing world that has developed a lot of anxiety for a lot of people nowadays. I thank you guys very much for your time.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I just want to say I'm really glad you're still here. And I think what I take away from what she said is connection's so important. And we're so connected via social media, but we seem so disconnected. So I think really the takeaway I take is just really reach out, talk to someone. It can make such a difference in someone's life, and, always lead with kindness. We're not a crisis resource, but 988 is a phone call or text away. We got the number 2 years ago, and we're so thankful for it. So we promote it constantly. There's also the telehealth crisis lines that are all over in different areas. So please reach out and save yourself, because you're worth it. So now I'd like to invite Curtis up. We're very lucky. Our founder Bernadette has had a long partnership with different Indigenous communities in the area. So we always start our walks with a bit of a celebration. And if Curtis would like to say a few words, and then we'll do a smudge. But I'll let him take the lead. Okay? Thank you. So we're starting very soon.
Sorry, I'm a little so I think so. Did everybody hear me? I'll start over. Anin Nigangan Kom Nadishkas Chimnasing Donjabal Wabjek Shido Dem. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Curtis Kopagog. I'm from Chimnasing, also known as Christian Island or Bosley First Nation, and I'm part of the Martin Clan. So, more taller. I'd like to say miigwech, thank you to everybody that's taken the time to speak, bring awareness to, suicide awareness, talk about it, talk about those supports that we have within the community. Easy stat to go by, unfortunately, Indigenous people have high rates of suicide within our First Nations communities, high rates of individuals within the justice system. So I spent 5 years supporting male youth and men within the criminal justice system. So as much as we talk about our first responders, being first on scene, my direct experience is supporting individuals that are going through struggles. So, unfortunately, not all of them are here with us today. So, when we think about, people that are within the justice system, same thing, we talk about that stigma and how people are viewed in their communities. A lot of these people, wrong place, wrong time, mishaps, what was their upbringing, what was their childhood, what was their youth like, these are individuals that feel that heaviness or that sometimes that sense of burden within their family or their community or disappointment. And my hope, my job is to help support them through that time within the criminal justice system. With those individuals, we think about, they're often left out or they're often forgotten because of the stigma attached to people involved with the justice system. But these are our friends, our family, our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our aunts, nieces, nephews. Nobody's fully prone to some level of justice involvement. It might be drinking and driving. It's quick, unfortunate decisions that we sometimes make that ends us up in a situation that we wouldn't find ourselves in. So due to that, when we talk about, and I'm speaking about indigenous communities and family members, anybody involved with the justice system, anybody involved with addictions, we need to continue to provide more community supports, specific supports that are actually going to reach our youth, our young adults, and men. When we talk about, I loved hearing our men share their stories. 10 years ago, this walk was probably all women. Where are the supports for our men? Where are the supports? Where do we go? We come from a generation, a society of men don't talk about their feelings. They don't talk about their hard times. They don't talk about their struggles. So that silence is now broken due to the advocacy, sharing your story, sharing, bits and pieces of your personal life. That personal aspect, hopefully that connects with other people. So part of what I do within the community is I connect Indigenous children, youth, and families back to their culture, back to their community, back to their identity. Feeling that responsibility of this thought of at one point, where do I belong? What is my purpose? What is my meaning? A lot of, for myself, I found that within my culture. When I speak about youth involved in the justice system, I was one of those youth involved in the justice system. I felt I was that burden. I felt, I disappointed my family. I felt, the stigma that I felt from my community. The places that I lived. I was labeled as the bad, aggressive, angry kid. The good for nothing kid. The kid that will be constantly in and out of the justice system. Those were the thoughts that were going through my head as early as 13 years old. That's a lot for a 13-year-old to hold on to. It didn't get better as I got older. When we talk about, addictions with the home, violence within the home, all that became very, very heavy on me. Thankfully for me, I had supports within the community. I had healthy, male mentors that I could go to talk about my feelings, talk about my emotions. These were things that weren't widely heard of years ago. But now we have more men speaking up. We have more male youth speaking up, youth speaking about their experiences, not in a sense to just to bring hope, to bring awareness. We know if a 14-year-old teenager is going through some things. As an almost 40-year-old male, it's hard for me to relate to those youth now. hate to say that, but at one time it was easier to relate to the youth. So continue doing what you're doing. I love the support and the genuine kindness and care that I see here outside, and I don't know if it's all love and care if we're just trying to stay warm, but we're all huddled together. For the ones that are, I'll share a little bit. For the ones that have that loved one, the family member, the friend, the loved one that has gone on ahead of us, the impact that it made in our families and our communities is huge. Remember the good times. Remember those good moments, those good things. Everybody has a purpose on why we're here during this physical time. But we think about the impacts that those ones have made. Youth, adult, seniors, workers. What was the positive impact that those ones made? And maybe part of that positive impact, and it's hard to see in the moment, but bringing that awareness. We have more people talking about this now. It's become a norm. There's still a lot of barriers to face, but we're making those strides to put proper supports in place so that people can connect, talk, and share their story. So with that, I think what we'll do is I'll share one song. Where's my helper? My helper's running around somewhere. When we start the walk, what I'll do is we'll have that smudge available. Sage is one of our main cleansing medicines in our Anishinaabe teachings. So we'll light that smudge with sage. We'll kind of just have that going. Feel free to kind of stop and have a smudge. The way we smudge it, and I teach this with our little kids, it's just like washing your hands with that smoke. You'll go over your head, your eyes, your ears, your mouth, lastly your heart. And that just helps me to think good things, see good things, hear good things, speak good things, and lastly to feel those good things. We'll try and do our best to get everybody. You don't have to smudge, you can just respectfully pass. But I'm gonna end off with this song here. Let's try this. Way hey, way hey, way hey, way hey, way hey, way hey, way hey. Megazegi wa ma, megazegi wa ma, gi wa ma, gi wa ma, megazegi wa ma. Way hey, 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 way hey. Megazegi don wa, megazegi don wa, gindon wa, gindon wa, megazegi don wa. Way hey, 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 way hey. Megazegi kwana, megazegi kwana, git kwana, git kwana, megazegi kwana. Way hey, 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 way hey. Au, migote.
Thank you, Curtis, so much. That was just lovely. And I know John Rice, for those that know John Rice, he also sends his love today. So I'm just going to do 2 more quick door prizes, and then we're going to get going. It's 7170. 7173. Anybody have 7173? Because I want to be your friend. There you go. Thank you so much. All right, so I think is Curtis. Where did you want people out on the grass? Yeah. Do we want to do a circle like we did that other time? Oh, Barb said yes, Lee.
Yeah, perfect.
If everyone would love to come over here on the grass, and maybe we can do like a giant circle. And if you'd like to participate in the smudge, they'll just come around. And then we're gonna get the signs out, and we're gonna head up